Today on the Riff, Jeremy and Justin talk about getting happy. How do you get happy? Does happy just happen? We hope this episode adds just a little bit to your happiness today. Thanks for listening.
Riff listeners, welcome to another episode of The Riff. And when I say Riff listeners, yes, I'm referring to the Riff Raff.
Oh,
that's what we call them. So, hey, I'm here with Justin today, and we're dropping another episode. Justin, as we're recording this on a Wednesday, so happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday.
Or is it a happy Wednesday? Because we just talked about what we're going to talk about today.
Oh, my goodness.
And it's not
That's
Wednesdays,
so right.
it's happiness.
It's happiness,
So,
that's right. Speaking of happiness, walked in today and felt happy. We'll get into that, but I felt pretty happy because we got something new. I don't know if you noticed it.
Yes,
Did
your
you
birthday
notice?
is tomorrow.
My birthday? That is true.
And
but
happy birthday. That's a lot of pressure to put on you.
I'm not fishing, but but I'll take it.
Yeah.
Okay. There's something new in the studio.
Okay,
There's
something new in the studio. Is that painting new over there in the corner?
That painting is not new, but that is a work right there.
Thank you. I am thinking, is it the fact that you're not wearing black? You're wearing
there's black underneath.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, you don't need to show me. Okay. I don't know where you're going with that. I'm at a loss.
It's a new lava lamp.
That is a new lava.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't look great. It doesn't look great yet. I think it's got to get broken in. So if you're a YouTube listener and you can see it, you see what we're talking about. But if you're just listening, number one, sorry to bring you into this.
Is it okay? So help me out of this. I've done a couple of Marvel tours.
Yeah.
Is it a stalagmite?
Stalactite?
Stalactite.
One's up, one's down, right?
Yeah. One's. What's the other one?
Stalagmite and stalactite.
Yeah. Top comes from the top down as a stalactite. Comes from the bottom up as a stalagmite. Maybe it's a stalagmite. I don't know.
Right.
But anyway,
hopefully though it looks better as we keep going. So
I have not. What do you call it? Your is it spelunking when you go like cave?
Spelunking?
Yeah,
I think so.
But I have not done any of that
right now.
since I watched that. Have you seen that video on those soccer team that got stuck in a cave?
No.
Oh my word! Like 19 boys get stuck in a cave. I won't go into Silver Dollar City's Marble Cave after that.
No.
Not without a bunch of trail mix. I'll tell you that. No, yeah. Yeah. So, if we still have time, do we still have time? Yeah, we got a few minutes. Okay, so let's dive in. Genesis of this conversation.
Yeah.
If I may be so bold.
No, yeah.
Okay, as, I'm not trying to flex, but I'm just saying,
I can't wait
because
to
of
see
my
what
position,
comes from
because
this.
of my position as a pastor at a church in Springfield, Missouri. From time to time, I get a book that gets mailed, and people typically say, "Hey, you're a pastor. Here's a free copy of a book that I have." Because what they want me to do is like the book and say, let's order thousands of these books and force all of our constituency to read this book. So I get books. Now, at first, I put all the books right in my bookcase because I want to look like a learned pastor. Mm-hmm. But we wanted to use that space for a ping pong table. So now I don't need the books like that. And so I get this book the other day, and in humor, I toss it to you and say, I'm not reading this thing. Go for it. Then, next time I see you, you bring up how powerful that book was, or something like that. I don't know.
We make fun of it.
We made fun of the book.
And then I threw it back. Okay, let's remember this. Because you're just saying I just took it and then was like, no, I'm going to devour this. I didn't. Okay, we were funny. We was funny together.
It was funny. I giggled. I told Leanne about it afterwards.
Oh, my goodness. So I leave that book in the office.
Are you crying?
No, I don't know what I just
swallowed. Are you crying?
I think I
Do you
swallowed
have
a bug.
COVID?
No,
if you're
I
crying,
don't have
I want to
COVID.
pull the string. If you're COVID, we want to end this episode.
I feel like I swallowed a bug or something. Are there gnats in here?
No, there were two, but I don't see them anymore. I think you're good.
Golly. I get the book. I throw it out, right? I throw it away from the desk. I'm like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's Arthur Brooks. Never heard of him. And Oprah. Never.
I've heard of her.
I've heard of her. I never read her.
She's from Chicago originally.
Yeah. And I started listening to a podcast.
Side note, it wasn't Oprah that sent me. I think it was the co-author.
Are you sure?
Actually,
I don't know.
It wouldn't shock me. That does sound like Oprah.
It would not shock me.
A giveaway. Yeah, of course it was Oprah.
Yes,
anyway.
Yes. I get on a podcast, a Tim Ferriss podcast. I start listening to one. It's a new one, and it's this guy. It's the guy of that book. I'm like, well, that's a coincidence.
It's a little God wink, if you will.
Oh, God. And then it blows my mind. The podcast he's incredible. So it turns out that this guy is at the Harvard Business School and teaches,
the old HBS.
The old HBS.
Yeah.
And teaches a course on nonprofit management and leadership, because that's kind of his like background. He did that for years. He's a Catholic and started in a nonprofit section. Really, really made a name for himself, I guess, in that area. Never heard of him. And then goes to Harvard and starts teaching on it. And as he's teaching the nonprofit sector of Harvard, he realizes a link through all of these people that are in the nonprofit world, and it's happiness. Okay. So then he starts researching happiness like crazy, becomes a social scientist, all this kind of stuff. Gets his PhD through all of this before he gets to Harvard. But he notices that happiness is a link for all of these nonprofit pieces. So then he looks deeper into that. And the one thing that he finds is giving.
Really?
Yeah. So
like, what do you mean giving?
He starts to see that
like pass the buckets type of giving?
Anything.
Okay.
Giving away your life. So like designing something and then giving it away. So he talks about designing your life that way as well. And that's what this book is about that we were making fun of, because it does. The front cover looks
I gotta be honest,
so
it was jealousy.
Stupid.
It was jealousy that made me,
yeah.
Because I'm like, I wish I had a book that people would pass around.
We've talked about it.
But no one passes around.
No, that's right. Yeah. So you're halfway there.
Yeah.
It looks, the cover's horrible.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
No, I wouldn't have put it on my book.
As Oprah, I'm like, yeah. But the whole idea of it is designing this life and creating this life to be happy, right?
Yeah.
And he goes through this whole idea of how happiness isn't real, which sounds bad and sounds sad, but it's not. But the whole idea is to give it away.
Yeah.
At the end, all of it. He wrote a book before this called Strength to Strength, which is about designing your life and creating happiness in the second part of your life. So if you're 40 on.
Do you think you're in the second part of your life?
I'm getting there. Yeah. I feel older.
Yeah.
My left arm hurt like this whole week while it rained.
You're supposed to go to the hospital if it's your left arm.
Oh, I don't think it was like that. I think it was my elbow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I think that's just more urgent care.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. But he talks about what it looks like to give your life away. What it looks like just to give everything away. And that's what it is. He goes through all of this stuff, and it's just so fascinating.
Really?
It's so fascinating. So I have a couple of questions from listening to him, from reading a couple of things from him. I got a couple questions for you.
Let's do this.
Happiness, right?
Let's just crack that open.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So he walks through happiness, says happiness isn't real. It's not really a feeling. It's this, it's like you can't explain Thanksgiving dinner. You can explain the smells of it and the people that are there, but you can't explain the experience of Thanksgiving dinner. You can just explain the things that surround Thanksgiving dinner. Thanksgiving dinner is its own entity, right?
Okay.
But you can explain all these other things, how it smells, the people that are there, the feelings that you had. And he's like, that's what happiness is. Happiness is that Thanksgiving dinner. And we usually talk about enjoyment or pleasure or fun or family that surrounds that idea of happiness. But we all are like searching for this happiness, which is an elusive thing. It's like, no, you're actually searching for these other pieces that are like leading to happiness, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things he talks about, a couple of things that I have questions on for you, is he talks about the importance of enjoyment inside of happiness. You have to have enjoyment in order to find this elusive thing called happiness. And enjoyment, he talks about how it's different from pleasure. So he says pleasure is self-seeking. Pleasure is this idea that you want something to make you feel good right then and right there. Enjoyment, the idea of enjoyment and the process of enjoyment, it has to have people inside of it, inside of the experience. So he talks about how you have to have memories and community to actually have enjoyment. So he talks about pleasure. He talks about pleasure, and it's this idea of, it makes sense. He's like, that's why pornography is such an issue. He's like, it produces pleasure and it gives you an idea of happiness, but at the end it's empty and it's lonely. It's the same thing when you get addicted to a casino, right? Pulling a slot machine. And we talked about this on Saturday of like...
Hey, that was a private conversation.
Oh, okay. But after your message, right? Like we were talking about community and we were talking about how like beer commercials and casinos don't show people by themselves drinking, don't show themselves like them by themselves, like pulling the slot machine. They show it because we know what we are meant for, which is community. So I want to know, like, how has that, as a pastor, I mean, you've seen so many people searching for things and striving for things and thinking that they found something, whether it be pleasure or enjoyment or happiness. What has your experience been with that as you've pastored people through those moments?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's, what I'm hearing about, talking to you about this book, it feels like kind of probably some reinforcement and some great references to things that I think are really biblical, right? In the sense of the idea of purpose in this pursuit of, and we have in a lot of our scripture the word righteousness. Righteousness, loosely translated, right living, but basically the path that God has. It's righteous, right? So it's not necessarily morality, though that can fit into it, and ethics, and that can fit into it, but it's this path, not a place, and not a deed. And so that this general rule, when you're on the path in alignment with this path, then blessed, which we've interpreted as happy. Mm-hmm. So I've had a counselor talk to me about, and I hope I'm relaying this right, that happiness is like anger is a secondary emotion. That it is, that while it's a feeling, so if I ever check in and say, hey, I've got a lot of happiness, right? And say, what else do you have? Because you can't just have, there's something else there that produced that sense of happiness, right? Mm-hmm. Because happiness is a byproduct of something else. Anger is a byproduct of fear, sadness. It's my response to it, right? And so happiness would be the same thing. And so I do believe this pursuit of something meaningful often will give happy moments, but even when happy moments don't seem to be present, there's this sense of purpose, or scripture would say blessing. So I think we all pursue happiness. We have this inherent right, the pursuit of happiness. But that's a lot of pressure, because if like you say, whether it is a moment, whether it's a porn issue, if it's an affair issue, you can have pleasure. A 30-minute pursuit of pleasure might take you 2 months to get there, and it doesn't produce purpose. All of a sudden, now this pleasure produces pain and complication. At the same time, you do the right thing, and like maybe you're serving at like a give back event, the Dream Center. Maybe you're serving in your community. It might surprise you how right you feel, even if it didn't benefit you. So yeah, I love that idea.
So talk to me about, you say that we're all pursuing happiness. Like, what happens when we get into spaces and we find ourselves unhappy? Yeah. Or we find ourselves that it's not fulfilling? Like, are you the type of mind that's like, just cut and run, like find something different, find something? Or are you kind of like a dig in? And when do you know? Like, no, this is something I want to dig into, or this is something I want to cut and run from?
Yeah, I think that's why it's such a big deal to talk about, because we tend to pursue happiness. Whether, you talk about the commercials, right? Whether it's finances, whether it's hanging out with my community. If I could and we chase happy. And we chase happy rarely happens. And sometimes people rearrange their entire life to pursue happiness. And in their mind, they're thinking, if I have this, or if I have that, or if I achieve this, or if I achieve that, then I'm happy. And this is why it's such a big deal. When you do everything possible, whether it's this series of conversations to achieve this relational quest, or whether it's a decade of working hard to get this position that you've always thought, I'll be happy when, and then when you get there and you realize how fleeting it is, the problem is now it's so empty, because you realize, here's what I forfeited to experience this, and now I've been duped. Or here's how long I worked hard to accomplish this. I've got more money than fill in the blank. I've got more opportunity than fill in the blank. why do I feel this way? And then you feel like if I tried this hard to get here, I can't even imagine how hard I have to try to get something at a higher level or a different level to achieve the thing I thought I would have achieved by now. Because happiness, not that you wouldn't have it, but it doesn't last, right? It's like a mist. But when you get right, and I don't mean right meaning like stop cussing, okay, or church attendance. I believe, when you get on God's path, which we would call righteousness, the path that God has for you, that is arrows pointed out, happy happens. We chase happy, but I believe the way we're wired, happy should happen when we pursue purpose.
We could start a bumper sticker company. Just happy happens.
Well, I've already thought this through, Justin, and the name of the company would be called Bumper Snickers. That would be, and I hesitate to even say this because I know there's some riffraff who are going to go and buy and drive up the price of that domain name.
I know, man.
But joke's on you because I've already gone to GoDaddy, or what is it?
It's GoDaddy.
GoDaddy,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
And I've already... bumpersnicker.church.tv is already taken.
Man.
So
That's going to be great.
yeah. But really it's that the pursuit, because happy comes and goes, because you can be absolutely poor and have happiness. You can be absolutely loaded and have happiness. You can be absolutely religious and happiness comes and goes. And you can be miserable. You could be absolutely what we would consider from a religion perspective, pagan, right? As pagan as possible. And there's going to be moments of happiness, right? But again, it's the longevity of happiness.
One of the things I dig working with you in this capacity, because I get to see you off of the stage, right?
Yep.
You like as you're preaching, seem like a very fun dude. You're funny, like all this, right? Ha ha ha. And the thing I hear the most, which is so true from people that get to be with you, is that you're the same off of that stage as you are on. And it's so true, right? Like it's just such a breath of fresh air to have somebody in that space be genuine. So how do you stay that way? Because there are moments like you feel, I'm not saying you're a robot and you're just like, I'm always smiling, right? Like you walk through ups and downs, but there's some way that at the end of the day, you really do have open hands at the end of the day. And then you're able just to make a joke and walk off where I'm like, yeah, that's true. Well, how do you do that? Like, what do you do? What do you do personally to keep your mind in kind of that space?
Well, I would say, I mean, you know me as well as anybody, and Leanne's close. She might know me, but so let me preface that work-wise. But so you know, like I would guess you can tell when I'm not in a good mood, right? So but at the same time, I think how we keep in that is I never have this pressure of, okay, hey, I owe it to Justin today to always be chipper. Okay, I don't feel that. I also know just a general purpose of life is I should be, as a general rule, a life giver, but it's not this weird, polished. So I don't ever feel awkward for displaying frustration with you. I would feel wrong. And you've seen this where I've been inappropriate in my anger. Like if I've been jaded and I've been cynical and dismissive because I'm mad or I'm irritated at something. And what I need to do, just like all of us, what we need to do is just understand it and recognize it as quick as possible. So if I'm in a bad mood, to be able to say, okay, what I need to make sure I do is don't let a bad moment create a bad day. As a matter of fact, we have this ism, which is probably a commonly discussed ism on our team that some don't agree with at first blush. The ism that we have, and ism is North Point ism, just one of the values we have at work, is leaders can't afford to have a bad day on a bad day. And so tell me why at first blush that could seem like, well, that's not healthy.
It's fake, right? It's masks.
Yeah.
It's just,
Don't forget your mask because you're a Christian leader.
You better smile and say, Jesus has the wheel. Okay?
Right.
Go get him.
Yeah.
Like that's it. That's the ism.
And what we try and create at North Point is opposite of that.
Right.
And so that's kind of an initial conversation.
And we did a full episode on this thing.
Okay.
Right?
I thought we might have. Yeah.
Embrace the suck and land the plane.
Okay.
So that's the title of it. It's a great episode.
Side note, if we had a topic with a title for our podcast, I think you'd win.
Oh.
You're good at this stuff.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
But talk to us about why that's different.
Because it is different. You go through in that episode, there was a news article of a guy, the pilot passes out.
Yes.
The guy jumps to the front of the plane and lands it.
Yes.
Right? So the idea is, that's a bad day.
Yeah.
When your pilot passes out, bad day.
Yeah.
Bad day.
Oh,
but if you're going to sit in the back and you're going to talk about how bad of a day it was, and then you're like, isn't this a bad day to your wife? And then you guys are just like crying about it. And you're like, oh, this is horrible. This is horrible. And then the plane crashes.
Yeah.
That's the worst day. Okay. It's the worst.
That's how you make a bad day worse.
We're not saying the day doesn't suck.
Right.
Right. So like you can still say and look at her and be like, this is horrible.
Yeah.
I got to land the plane.
Yeah.
Right.
What must I do now?
As a leader,
right.
I'm going to step forward and I'm not going to like stuff down the emotion and I'm not going to be like, everything is good. I'm like, no, this is rough and I'm going to get us out of this.
Yes.
And after this, we're going to go to counseling and we're going to do everything possible and needed. But right now in the moment, it is requiring this of us.
Yeah.
Right. So don't be fake in the moment. Don't be like, it's all good. No, this is tough. This is tough. But let's walk through it. Happens in parenting as well, right? Happens in a relationship within marriage, happens in dating, happens in all of these different scenarios to where if you just let the moment take control of you, you're just going to be a slave to what is happening around you. Right?
Yes.
So that's the idea of it. It is not a put on a fake smile. It's just not. But it's also not sit in the back of the plane and don't do anything, right?
Yeah. So I think that's why I feel like I can't afford to land in, like I would tend to pout, right? We talked about that in an episode before, is I can't afford to stay there because the purpose, right? The purpose is bigger than this. And so it's like, okay, let's figure out what are the next steps. And so it's not just a slogan we talk about. I think that is an active discipline of a follower of Jesus is what is my next step? It's a golf philosophy too. Like when I hit the ball in the woods, I can let that bad shot impact my next 4 shots and be like, oh man, I'm so frustrated. Now I'm just going to try and do something that is a dumb decision because of a bad previous shot. What I have to ask is, what's my next best shot? Okay. It's not sexy to just hit it 90 degrees right into the fairway at 30 yards here, but that's my next best shot. And so now I need to compartmentalize that bad shot and don't let one bad shot impact 3 next shots. And but the key there is purpose. Here's what I also think is important, and it sounds like fascinating with this idea of this book is happiness is not a validation that you're on the right path. And sadness is not a validation that you're on the wrong path. Mm-hmm. These are human emotions that come and go because we are humans and we have emotions. Purpose is the validation. Benefiting someone else, we call it arrows pointing out. I think there's significance when you take your strength that you've been gifted by God and you figure out a way to serve your community or serve others with it. Community, when I'm benefiting others, that's a validation if I'm on the right path. And I can serve others and feel sad that I'm not recognized, feel sad that it wasn't as many people as I wanted to talk about. I mean, think of Schindler's List at the end of the movie. Have you seen it?
A couple times.
Okay. At the end of the movie, the guy's crying. I could have done more. I could have done more. I could have done more. And the dude crushed what he did, right? But that's a very visual, I'm sad and I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah.
It is, you can do the right thing and happiness comes and goes. The book of Psalms is a guy doing the right thing and feeling terrible and confused, thinking, why do I feel this way? Is either God there? Is he good? Or maybe I'm bad. What if none of those are correct? What if you're doing the right thing and you're just emotional, right? So he says community, and what else did he say? The guy said the key to happiness or the key to purpose, pleasure, purpose versus pleasure.
Yeah, he talks about enjoyment.
Okay,
you have
enjoyment,
to have that of pure enjoyment, not just pleasure. Okay. He talks about this other arm of being, you've got to have a sense of purpose. Okay. You've also got to have a sense of satisfaction. Okay. And the satisfaction thing leads to what you're saying. Yeah. Like you've got to have these moments that are trials and that are hard because happiness is not the result of no unhappiness. It's not.
Say it again for those in the back.
Happiness is not a result of no unhappiness. Did you get that in the back?
I just got out of a charismatic conference, so I'm going to be doing this for a while. I'm preaching better than you're amening. But anyway, keep going.
The whole idea is exactly what you're talking about, right? That psalmist, that everything that has, it leads you to it, right? And it leads you to these places. He talks about, and it's such an interesting, I would suggest if you're going to get into this stuff with him, to listen to the Tim Ferriss podcast opposed to the book.
Yeah, and is that the name of the podcast, or do you remember?
Tim Ferriss Show.
Yep.
Is the
second favorite podcast you listen to?
Yeah, Riff is number one.
Yes.
Yeah, number
absolutely.
one. And what's so interesting is Brooks is obviously a follower of Jesus, and Tim is not. But I have high respect for Tim. Like Tim Ferriss, he's such a great mind.
Time out. You're telling me you have high respect for someone who's not a follower of Jesus?
I do. Yeah.
Is that
it's
possible?
Crazy, right? It's so crazy. I know.
Mind blown.
He's just so open-minded. And he even talks to him in one of the moments because he's asking like about this significance thing and this meaning thing. And he brings up religion a lot about how it helps him and moves him into a space like pure religion.
Yeah.
And he's like, religion, what it does for me is it makes me smaller. So he's like, that's the key. The key is to make me smaller and realize, okay, well, it's not really like about me. And Tim Ferriss is like, what I love about Tim is he's just like, I'm so jealous of that. Wow. He's like, I want to believe these things, right? So then Brooks walks even through like, here's a couple of other things. If you're not believing in Jesus yet, right now, take a walk in nature, right? It will make you feel small, right? Wake up and watch the sunrise. So he just walks through all of these things that lead you ultimately to Jesus, right?
Yeah.
Like, but it's just such a cool conversation. And for me, it's a better conversation than the read. But anyway, he talks a lot about purpose.
Yeah.
And a lot about finding meaning, right? So what do you say to that? To somebody that's listening to this, right? That might be new to North Point. We've had a lot of new people in the past couple months with Nixa and with Fall and people, somebody new to North Point, somebody new maybe even to Jesus or coming back to Jesus, thinking like, I'm still interested, even though I had this horrible experience. Like, what would you say to them about purpose and about meaning as they start their walk, their journey into this?
Yeah, I think significance is a byproduct, not of how you achieve or what you achieve. It's why you achieve, right? It's this surrender of no matter what I do, whatever my hand finds to do, I do for the glory of God. James says it this way, very similar to what you just described. Pure religion, true religion is this: to look after orphans and widows in their distress. When you figure out a way to have your arrow that naturally points in, to point out and to say, okay, how this teaching of Jesus, how do I now reflect it? I need to demonstrate. So sometimes we think my job is to declare the truth of Jesus in the Bible Belt. Wow. I think my job is to demonstrate the truth of Jesus wherever I go. Because a good demonstration has a loud declaration, right? Mm-hmm. But if I have a loud declaration without demonstrating it, I'm just making it more difficult. So I would just say this: if you're new to faith, new to North Point, or just realizing you're doing a lot of good things, but you feel like you don't have significance or purpose, start with every good and perfect gift came from God the Father above. He created you, he gifted you on purpose, but with purpose, for purpose, so that now when you take what you have ability to do, whether that's your time, your talent, your gifts, and it serves a purpose, his path, a way to demonstrate his love, whether it's serving those who are underserved, whether it is somehow lifting up other people, and it could be very strategically something that has Christian emphasis, or it could be just the Jesus principles of honoring and serving. Then all of a sudden now you have purpose. And so when we find out life is not about us, when we figure out how to use our talents that way, it's a big deal. And I'm not saying, well, that's why you need to volunteer at North Point and then you'll be, joy-filled and happy. I'm talking about bigger. What is your purpose? How do you point it out? Who's someone that's life could be lifted because all of a sudden you thought about it? Then when you do that, you got purpose. Like I think of Paul in Scripture. He was in prison and he had purpose. He's in prison in Acts chapter 16. And while he's there, he's thinking, how do I serve these guys around me? And then he's freed and he's consumed with, oh no, I might cost the jailer his job because we're all leaving. So he convinces all these guys who just got dramatically freed to stay in prison. And then he goes to the jailer, hey, look, we're all here. You're not losing your job. Don't worry. Like, what? Because he had a purpose. He had significance. Happy comes and goes. I hope you're happy. But purpose and significance is lasting. And speaking of happy, tomorrow is your happy birthday.
Oh my!
And I don't hope it's a happy birthday, Justin, because that is a fickle wish.
No.
I don't even mind if it's a sad birthday. What I want is a significant birthday.
What time is the surprise party? Do you have the time nailed down?
I'm not going to tell you, but I will just say,
well played,
I would have myself ready for the day by 6:30 in the morning. Okay. So that's all I'm saying. Maybe hang out right off Sunshine and wait for potentially a party bus. But that is all you're getting out of me because I am Fort Knox.
Okay. All right. I can't wait.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Hey, if you see Justin tomorrow and whatever tomorrow is for you, that works. Tell him happy birthday. But I love that. So Tim Ferriss Podcast. And again, remind us the author's name.
Arthur Brooks.
Yeah. And Oprah. Oprah,
yeah.
Thanks for sending me that book. And my deepest regards. Don't you worry, Oprah. I shall be sending you a copy of mine. All right, Riff.
She's gonna love it, man.
She's gonna flip. It's gonna be so awesome. All right, y'all have a great day. Thanks for listening to The Riff.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Riff. We'll have a brand new episode every week, wherever you find podcasts.